Black metal is one of those rare genres where the music takes a back seat to the theatrics for some fans. Church burnings, corpse paint, friendly handshakes, the genre seems to do anything it can to distract fans from the actual music. Despite this, the musical stylings of first wave black metal have gone on to inspire many individuals who probably have too much free time to develop the genre, combine it with the conventions of other subgenres, and essentially just minorly alter black metal and slap a new label on it so it can be called groundbreaking by people who look like this. Much like the entirety of metal, the topic of black metal subgenres is over bloated, needlessly complicated, and disgustingly edgy, meaning it's only fair we go through each of the subgenres of black metal and try to explain them the best we can, not just for the benefit of audience members who may be confused, but so black metal purists can have another place to direct their hate comments. Don't you dare call me a poser in the comment section. I despise reading it, don't you fucking dare. Also, no, I will not cover that specific subgenre of black metal. Those who are going to comment asking about it know exactly what subgenre I'm talking about. Please seek sunlight. In order to understand what stems from the original genre of black metal, we first need to briefly explore the first and second wave scenes. The first wave began in England with the band Venom, who would go on to essentially name the genre with their first commercially released album. Although the album is commonly referred to as speed or thrash metal, it laid the groundwork for black metal with its darker anti-Christian imagery, as well as its focus on terrible production and growled vocals. Bathory would push this further by shrieking like a possum that's just been told his nose is runny.
Wipe your nose, snot dripping and shit.
Bathory would also make the music more lo-fi, which essentially just means make it sound like shit. Other bands such as Merciful Fate and Hellhammer would add to this potion that would eventually go on to inspire the second wave of black metal, which introduces genre conventions that are more so defined, as well as the degeneracy the genre is known for, but that's for a different video. Watch my ignorant guide for that bollocks. In the early 90s, a bunch of edgy Norwegian kids essentially decided to take the style of metal developed by Venom and Bathory and push it to its limit, in order to rebel against their parents, I'd assume. A faster, more distorted playing would be adopted by Euronymous of Mayhem and Fenris of Darkthrone, creating a sound that was as atmospheric as absolutely disgusting. I'd say this second wave of black metal essentially defines the genre conventions, so let's quickly cover that before we get into its subgenres. Black metal guitar can essentially be seen as a form of torture. Extreme amounts of distortion is combined with extremely fast playing and an emphasis on treble, producing something that's bound to burst the eardrums of anyone subjected to it. To make this even worse, they refuse to palm mute, meaning the distortion of each note blends into each other. Some may call this atmospheric, whilst others call it unbearable. Notes wise, the guitarists opt for any riff or solo that creates an
powerful sense of dread.
I'd say black metal bassists are perhaps the most underused individuals within all of metal. For the most part, they follow the root notes of the guitarist and get drowned out by some of the most disgusted, abhorrent, distortion-themed noise. Drumming also follows the same conventions as guitar, as fast as humanly possible, completely disregarding the health and safety of the person playing the instrument. Many black metal drummers choose to ignore technique and will occasionally attempt to de-learn the instrument. This is so they are less inclined to play fancy fills and solos. They essentially just want to recreate how a caveman would play the drums if they were introduced to the instrument for the first time. Song structure within black metal is pretty conventional. Chorus, verse, chorus type shit. They spend too much time painting their face and sticking spikes to their clothes to focus on that shit. Black metal vocals remain one of the defining features of the genre. Instead of low-pitched growls employed within other genres, black metal vocalists decided they wanted to develop a way to destroy their vocal cords even more, instead opting for a high-pitched shriek. I would cover lyrics, but they are pretty much impossible to understand, so just look at this image. What do you think this person would sing about? Whatever is in your head currently, you are completely correct. So these conventions essentially cover what is known as second wave black metal, raw black metal, and true cult black metal, and I guess just black metal, so we'll leave them out for the forthcoming list. Melodic black metal stays true to many of the conventions of original black metal, with only a few attributes contributing to its different sound. A genre emerged in the mid-90s, with Dissection and Sacramentum changing up the original black metal sound a little bit. Although melodic black metal keeps many of the conventions, such as fast tempos, tremolo picking and shrieking, it delivers it in a less aggressive and minimalistic way, with a heavier focus on atmosphere. This is achieved through a clean, polished guitar tone, with more diverse riffs and solos. Guitarists will occasionally employ acoustic guitars, and very occasionally, and I mean very occasionally, the singers will actually sing like sing normally. Whilst melodic black metal takes its foot off the gas a little bit, Ritualistic black metal does the complete opposite. The concept and purpose of ritualistic black metal is to transport the listener to a world of horror and decay, which sounds like an extremely pleasant experience. Many musicians within the scene are heavily interested in the occult, and apparently their way of spreading it is by pushing each of black metal's conventions to its limit, meaning less and less people are willing to listen to their music. Atmospheric black metal is another subgenre that alters some of the key conventions to emphasize on certain aspects of the original genre, and this time it's the subgenre expands upon the slow evolving riffs and repetitive melodies. They also slow that shit down, combining the typical drum, guitar and bass with synthesized ambient textures. The typical atmospheric black metal experience is much like freezing to death, slow, cold and extremely painful, although you do get a small bit of euphoria as soon as it's all finished. The genre would essentially be birthed due to the snowy landscape of Norway during the second wave of the genre. Bands wanted to focus more on cold ambient soundscapes that reminded them of home. Let's swiftly move on to the least atmospheric thing possible, bestial black metal. This genre focuses on outright aggression and sonic brutality, essentially throwing away any aspects of musical talent and replacing it with noise. Of course, based on this explanation, you probably already guessed the genre incorporates elements of grindcore and gore grind. This is perhaps the most headache-inducing of the bunch. Instead of freezing to death, it's like being repeatedly stabbed in the head with an icicle. Symphonic black metal finally introduces some more complex instrumentation. This one is incredibly confusing to me, not just because of this extremely cursed and confusing concert footage, but it always raises the question, how did these motherfuckers convince these motherfuckers to play a concert with them? Like literally an entire fucking orchestra. Okay, so if you haven't guessed by my schizophrenic ramblings, symphonic combines black metal with classical music, which is often presented through an entire symphonic orchestra being drowned out by an edgelord with corpse paint and an electric guitar. Let's move on to another subgenre that can be entirely explained and understood by just reading its name. Folk black metal. Essentially, black metal artists becoming a little bit too obsessed with their ancestry and completely tearing it apart by combining their traditional music with black metal. This subgenre kind of sounds like a disease, or the term for something you really don't want in your dishwasher, blackened crust. It is basically as stinky and vile as it sounds, as it combines the two stinkiest fan bases, black metal and crust punk. Although to be fair, these two fan bases are on the complete opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to weight. This genre would actually rear its head before the second wave, with crust bands being inspired by first wave bands, although it would truly come to fruition when crust punk bands realised they were being out-degenerated by black metal and decided to combine. Before we go into the final and most surprisingly controversial subgenre, let's cover one of the most popular subgenres, depressive suicidal black metal. This subgenre is often played by one-man bands, because they're too depressed to form a band, I'd assume. The music incorporates lethargic atmospheres, repetitive song structures, and a slow tempo, combining all of that with the tones and vocal styles of black metal, with the lyrics being exactly what you'd expect, and exactly what YouTube do not want to hear if they still want to give me ads. Whilst swiftly avoiding all the subgenres that are entirely explained by the name, because I know you're just going to leave them in the comments, black and roll, yeah, it's fucking obvious, just figure it out. Let's move on to the most surprisingly controversial subgenre. You may be thinking this one must be horrendous, it must introduce some truly depraved and extremely heavy elements. Nope. It literally just combines black metal with shoegaze. So why is it so controversial? The black metal fanbase is amongst the worst when it comes to elitism. They absolutely hate it when people try and stay away from the original formula, and the subgenre that has gained the most hate from this fact is Blackgaze, mainly due to its toned down sound, focus on experimentation and boundary pushing, as well as its mainstream success. Blackgaze combines the fast and harsher elements of black metal and melds it with the dreamier soundscapes of shoegaze, creating something that's not only refreshing, but extremely appealing in my eyes. It's able to take a genre that is incredibly harsh and inaccessible by design and flip that on its head, creating music that can be perceived as beautiful by people who have actually left their house in the last 7 days. And remember poser in the actually no poser in the comments. Sorry, no poser in the comments. Don't do it.